Will Max Domi become the first Canadiens player to finish in the NHL top 10 scoring in my lifetime? And does Carey Price just need a big hug? That and more in this week's Hockey Inside Out. I'm Adam Susser, and welcome to this week's show. That is Pat Hickey. We got CBC Daybreak's Jess Resna, and HIO blogger, and one of the best men that Pat Hickey ever hired, Mr. Mike Boone. Thanks for joining us.
Not one of the best, the best.
That's what did I say? Oh yeah, the best, sorry.
Hick and I are call-ups from Laval.
Let's begin the show. It's no secret that Carey Price is not playing as well as he should be, and that his on-ice problems are all in his head, according to him. Well, if I was Carey Price, I'd take one of the $84 million that I'm getting paid over the next 8 years and hire a team of people to figure out what's going on inside my head and pay them to fix it, okay? Throw some money at the problem. How worried should the Canadiens be that Carey Price is struggling in his first year of his huge contract, and how do you think this will all play out?
I think that they should be concerned about this because this seems to be a reoccurring trend with Carey Price, especially this year being the year that he was supposed to bounce back from last year where he did have some issues as well. He was dealing with chronic fatigue and he said that was one of his problems. And now this year, early on in the season, saying that something's not right in his mind and that's something he has to figure out for it. And some people say it's not fair to judge Carey Price because of the salary that he's getting paid, that anyone would accept to get a lot of money. But if you're getting paid a lot of money, you have to be the difference maker on the team. And right now, Carey Price has not been the difference maker in the last little while.
Money will always... I'm chronically fatigued by waiting for him to become the goaltender he was when he won the Hart Trophy and several others. I think his game has decline, not precipitously, but maybe gradually ever since, and I'm terrified of them being locked into this contract. I see bad things down the road.
Yeah, I think the money will always come up. I mean, we've seen it with people who made less money, Patrice Brisebois, Thomas Buchanan most recently. It's a lot of money, and I was a little disappointed that Carey insisted on getting that much money, but the Canadiens set the market when they gave P.K. Subban $9 million, and Carey demanded he get what he considered market value. As far as his play on the ice, there are definitely reasons for concern, but I'd like to see what happens when Shea Weber gets back. The defense shores up a little bit. He gets a little help. In the past, it's always been the defense has needed Carey Price's help. Now he needs their help.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to add that I do think it's great that Carey Price did take the blame on himself after the game against the Buffalo Sabres. He was asked if it's the new goalie equipment for this year that's sort of bothering him, and he said, no, it's just on me, and he's not trying to make any excuses really for his play.
Pat, you mentioned that you're disappointed of how big his contract was. Do you not think, though, if the Canadiens didn't pay him that salary, he would have found it somewhere else?
Well, I don't think he would have found $10.5 million somewhere else because no other goaltender in the league's paid that much. He wanted to stay in Montreal. He felt that there were some good things happening here. They wanted to keep him here, and I don't think he would have gotten $10.5 million from anybody else.
But those crazy contracts, look what's happening in Chicago.
Yeah.
With Kane and Taves. Their contracts are absurd, and it's going to doom the Blackhawks. It seems to be, contagion throughout the league.
It's going to be a problem, but at the same time, the Canadiens still have $8 million left over. It's not like they're stuck on the cap. Mm-hmm. The contracts for him and for Shea Weber, who's got another zillion years to go on his contract, those are probably not going to be good contracts 5 or 6 years from now. But you hope that they get a couple of good years of value out of those two guys, and these young guys come up. The problem is if they win a Stanley Cup, say 3 years from now, then they're really going to be in trouble because everybody's going to want to raise.
I don't think people will be too upset if they win the Stanley Cup in 3 years from now. The Canadiens were blown out in Edmonton on Tuesday night, 6-2 against the Oilers. Do you think that was not an anomaly or a sign of things to come?
Well, Edmonton snapped a 4-game losing streak. They haven't been playing very well, but they threw everything they had at Antti Niemi last night. Antti Niemi made some incredible saves. It could have easily been 12-2. But I think that what they ran into a team with as much speed as they have and a lot more skill.
And a lot more size.
And a lot more size.
Which is every team in the NHL, basically.
And that hurt them. I think that was the difference in the game. They met basically a carbon copy of themselves, just with as Mike said, more size and more skill.
If you kind of look at the last week or so, you had the third period against the Rangers where they completely stopped playing. You had the game against the Buffalo Sabres that they were lucky they could get a point out of. They were able to bounce back against Vegas, but they're starting to show a little bit of cracks that they haven't had at the beginning of the season. I think then there can be, are they going to be able to sustain the way that they've been able to start the season? And that has always been the question, if they will be able to do that. And right now they're starting to show that maybe that they can't, that this might sort of be a little bit of a down period with the team. And if they can't recover from it, it could be bad news.
Are they slowly but surely, and perhaps quickly as the season progresses, reverting to what we thought they would be before the season began? I fear that might be the case.
And if you look at the defense, they're kind of looking more normal, more down to earth than what they looked like when they started the season.
Man, you guys are really a bunch of pessimists here on the panel today. Shea Weber's supposed to come back at some point in December. Which defenseman do you think will be sent down to Laval when he returns?
Wow.
That's a really good question. I think that Xavier Ouellet is the obvious guy, although he has been doing some good things out there. The other possibility is Victor Mete. He doesn't have to go through waivers, and if you look at his ice time recently, it's been below 14 minutes some games. The coach says that's because he's on the third pairing, and it may have something to do. But there was one game, for example, where he had 13 minutes and Ouellet had 17. So obviously they they still don't have a lot of faith in Mete in certain situations, and I think that would be the easy move to make.
So Ben and Alsner stay and the kids go down.
The kids go down.
That's sad.
And also that Xavier Ouellet has a two-way contract as well, so
Yeah.
it just makes things a little bit easier there. But yeah, the veteran players, unfortunately, because they're the veteran players, will get the benefit of the doubt there. But I don't know if it would be so bad for Victor Mete if he does go down to Laval, just because he will get a little bit more playing time, and maybe that will help him in the long run.
Yeah, tell him that when he gets his paycheck.
Yeah, that will really
there's
hurt him.
that.
That won't be benefiting him in the
Tell
long
him how
run.
good. Tell him how good it is to be making a tenth of the salary you're making in the NHL.
There's cheap places to eat in Laval. I mean,
What do you think, Mike? Do you think they should keep some of the kids or a kid up? And do you see them sending down one of the veterans?
I think in an ideal world, they would be able to cut Carl Alsner or somehow find some GM that's under drug treatment that might pick him up on waivers or something like that. But it's not an ideal world. So, as Patton just explained, it's just because of the contract situation, the kids are probably going down. But I'm sad to see it. I believe in developing youth, particularly on this team. So, we shall see.
Yeah, I think a lot depends on where they are in the standings when Weber comes back.
Yeah.
And for example, if they're battling and they feel that the most important thing to win, and that means that playing the veterans, 22 minutes, 23 minutes a game, and sacrificing some of the development of the young guys, they'll do that. However, if they start in a slide and they find themselves sliding out of a playoff spot, then get the kids, play them 22, 23 minutes a game.
Well, I'd like to see that happen. I'm not as pessimistic as you guys are. I don't think that what we saw on Tuesday night in Edmonton is going to be more frequent. I think maybe it was an outlier. I'm a little bit more optimistic.
I'm not
there.
pessimistic. I think the Canadians still have a good chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, I said it in the beginning of the year. I think that they're a better team than they were last year.
Yep.
But I was counting on a lot of different things. And one was the goaltender bouncing back, and we've only seen one or two instances of that. The other thing was avoiding injuries. Well, we've had some injuries, to guys that could be contributing to this team. And the other thing is I thought the defense had to patchwork a defense that was serviceable at least. Mm-hmm. And so far, there have been good games for the defense, and there have been some really bad games. Last night was one of the bad games.
I think the overall lack of size is really going to hurt them as the season progresses. With back-to-backs and the grueling schedule and the travel, they have too many small guys on the team.
Okay. Max Domi is currently hovering around the top 10 spot in the NHL scoring race. Do you think he will become the first Canadian player to finish in the top 10 since Mats Naslund did it in 1986? My God, that was a long time ago.
I'm the pessimist, so I'll say.
You're all the pessimists. I'm the only optimist here.
In an ideal world, yes, and even if he continues to play as well as he played. I mean, he's not a natural scorer. I don't know if this pace can be sustained, although he scored some of the nicest goals we've seen this season. Yeah. And early, too. You know, they barely finished the anthem, and Max Domi scores.
That's true.
They played 18 games. He scored a point, at least a point in all except 3 games. He's only been shut out 3 games. He's been a major surprise to me. I didn't think it was a good trade. I know why they felt they had to get rid of Alex Galchenyuk, but I thought they would sacrifice some size and they sacrificed some scoring. It hasn't turned out that way. The size is a factor, but he's a pretty solidly built guy. He reminds me a little bit of Gallagher. You know, guys. He's feisty. He goes to the net. He does all the things you want him to do, and he's got a higher skill level than Brendan does. Mm-hmm. So I think that this has turned out to be a very good acquisition. Actually, you know, both of the trades that they made, Max Pacioretty seems to have hit a wall in Vegas. I hope for Max's sake that he turns it around and starts playing well again, but it's just not happening for him. And Thomas Tatar, every time I stand next to him, I say, God, this guy is small. Yeah. He is small. I mean, he's not, you know, Gallagher and Domi at least look like they're ripped. This guy looks like a skinny little kid. But you see him play, and he does all the right things out there.
Not to mention Nick Suzuki, who's tearing it up in the OHL.
Yeah. I think if Nick Suzuki was the prospect that that they're banking on, I think he's probably still at least 2 years away from playing with this team. Now, I could be wrong, but, you know, there are guys who go directly from the OHL, you know, and play in the NHL, and they decided very early he was not ready. The guy that might be a surprise is Ryan Poehling, who is ripping it up in the college ranks.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Max Domi can really sustain that pace, but as you were mentioning, he is a lot like Brendan Gallagher, and the energy that he's able to create as well. And I think that's been one of the biggest differences between him and Alex Galchenyuk, that he's able to get other players to be able to elevate their game and just bring up the level. And if you need a goal, you can look to Max Domi, and he's probably going to be the guy that's going to be able to get that goal for you. So it's been a huge positive spot with the Montreal Canadiens, and just the way that he's been able to embrace the city as well, that it really surprised, I think, a lot of people what he's been able to bring.
And from time to time, he gets Drouin to emerge from his coma.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, he's just done a great job of waking Drouin up.
2 Gallaghers on the same team. I think that's pretty positive. I think the fans have been praying for that for a long time. The Canadiens played Oilers on Tuesday night. They're in Calgary on Thursday and in Vancouver on Saturday. How do you see the remainder of this Western trip playing out?
Well, I think that they do have an opportunity that they can bounce back because they have shown it in the past. And that Claude Julien said after the game against Edmonton that he really wants them to take the frustration from that game and bring it into Calgary. And the fact, too, that this is their only trip out there, and there's a lot of fans out west for the Canadiens, that in a way it's kind of like a home game, even though they don't necessarily take over the whole arena, that they do have a lot of support, that I think that they can, thrive off of that. It's just a matter of them putting the work into it and being able to come out with the win.
I think it hinges on Price. I presume he's going to get the start in Calgary, and if he's terrible, they're in trouble on the road trip. But if he plays a Pricean game, then they have a shot in Calgary, and they could win in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Carey Price he's from BC. He's got a lot of friends and family in Vancouver, and that's a game that he'll, if he can't get up for that game, if he can't be focused for that game, then they're in trouble.
Okay, well, that's all the time that we have for today's show. Thanks for watching at home. How do you think Carey Price's season will play out? Is this just a bump in the road, or are the Canadiens doomed? Let us know in the comments section below. I'm Adam Sesser, and I'll see you next Thursday.